Welcome back, you guys. It's Z and my better half. Go ahead. What's your name, sir?
My name is Charles. Hello.
And excuse us in the back. You hear the kiddos. We are on our way to Costco doing our normal Sunday run. But we thought it would be interesting to talk today about how we argue, or I kind of hate to use the word argue, how we have discussions and maybe some better approaches to how we have these arguments or discussions. So let's give one example. I think it was last weekend. Charles was bringing up maybe a little bit of his concern or discontent with a family member. And I don't know if you want to give a little background about that.
Yeah, so we had a relative who's around a lot, and he came up with a nickname for our child Elijah, and I didn't really like it. So he started this a couple of weeks ago, and it was really odd. One day he says, "I'm going to start calling him this nickname," and I didn't. I hated it, but I didn't really feel the need to start an argument about it. So I was just kind of quiet, like, "Oh, okay," and so now he does that, and nobody else does it. It's not flattering for our child at all, and so in the car last week, I was talking to Z, and I said, "Hey, I really hate it when so and so calls our child this," and she
Let me
indicated,
stop and
okay.
then I'm going to interject for a hot second. And I said, oh, I didn't think about anything in regards to that, right? It wasn't a horrible nickname. I heard this person call our youngest one this nickname, and it wasn't a big deal to me. I didn't really quite fully understand his problem with that. But the first time he brought it up, I said, oh, okay. And then I think I inquired, well, you know, what is your issue in regards? Do you feel like he dislikes our child's name? And you take it from there.
No, well, first off, I really like our baby's name.
I do too,
It's
right?
I really like our
Yeah.
baby's name, and every time I call him, I say his full name. There he is right now. He likes his name too, and so it just bothered me the fact that somebody thought that they needed to give our child a nickname, and that they were just going to take it upon themselves to, I'm going to call him this from now on, and it just, I don't know, it was a little like violating to me. And so I had a conversation going to Costco last week with Z about this, and this is a good way, or a good way to point out kind of how a lot of arguments or heated discussions start with us, because so I shared with her about how I don't like this nickname, and then she
Well,
says to
let me
me,
say what
okay,
I state in that moment,
yes.
okay? Because now he's getting a little sour again, if you can't tell. I said, well, did you say something, right? This is someone that you're really close with, right? So, logically, it's like, well, did you say something? And they kept on calling our child this nickname. And what did you say?
No, I decided that it wasn't worth starting an argument over. This is somebody who doesn't take criticism well, and so I just decided that I will just ignore it, and hope that it goes away eventually.
But I guess the problem that I had in the moment, and I brought this up with them, he brought it up the issue, and yes, that's our little one. We brought up the issue, and I was like, okay. And then he brought it up again, and I was like, well, maybe you should say something. I felt like that was a pattern with you, that maybe you don't always say something, but internally it bothers you. And then there lies a problem. Go ahead. And so, what was your issue with that, with me bringing that up?
So a lot of the time, I feel like when I tell stories to Z, or when I share my emotions. I say a lot of the time. This isn't necessarily a lot of the time, but sometimes when I share stories about things in my life, this is my reaction to something in my life. Um, she turns it around, and makes it, a, a story about me. And so, I'll tell her a story about, oh, this person, I don't, this happened with this person. I didn't really like it. And then she will turn it around and say, well, what did you do previously to prevent that from happening? And she really, I feel like she focuses in on, instead of listening to me share a story that's about my emotions and just being the audience for that. She'll turn it. She has a tendency to turn it around and zero in on my shortcoming in some way, and I don't feel like that's always necessary, because sometimes I just want to share a story because I have a need to share a story and just share my emotions, and I'm not always looking for criticism.
Can I give a response? So, as your partner, when you keep on telling me something, I try to do a good job listening, but I think also what I feel like is my responsibility is how do you resolve this issue?
And now,
So, hold on.
no, I'm sorry.
You
Okay,
complete, let me complete now.
sorry.
And so sometimes I feel like if there's something that I think that you can do to resolve this issue, I want to communicate where I feel like you have ownership, what you can do, right? And so, yes, I think you want to be heard and I try to hear you, but I feel like friends, right, will listen. But I feel like as your wife and your partner, my goal is to prevent you from having a reoccurrence of these issues. So I try to present to you where I think you can improve.
Mm,
But I think you receive that a lot of times very negatively.
mm.
That's my, you guys can always comment down below. Let me know if you think that's a wrong approach. But I feel like as a partner, right, listening is a part of it, but also how can we help our partner to do better?
But I feel like also the severity to which something becomes a teachable moment is dependent on how hungry you are and your general mood at the time too.
No, but even now, like I feel okay today, and I still stand by it. Sometimes what Charles will say is like, "Oh, I think you acted that way because you were tired, you were hungry, you were hormonal." But sometimes those are things that I genuinely feel, and I still stand by what I said. Last weekend or a few weekends ago. I think that's an area where you can improve on.
But now, when you share with me about things that have happened with relationships with people who are close to you in your life and your family, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking specifically one, I don't I feel like I very seldom try to look for your faults in those particular interactions, and then I usually just listen because I know that you're using me as a sounding board for those
I
things.
am, but I've told you this also last time because you brought this up. And I said, a lot of times I want you to give me back constructive feedback,
Right.
right? And sometimes I will get frustrated with Charles because I know he listens or he tries to be consoling, but I want to hear the truth, right? If I'm wrong in some way or some manner, as my partner, I trust him to tell me that so I can do better, right? Even it's, for example, I'm gonna give it small, something minor, like with how I look, right? I remember I got these braids, and he was like, "They look." Oh, I'm like, "Tell me if I look like a bobblehead. Don't have me going out in these streets looking crazy." And it was my mom who was like, "You look crazy." I know it was a sew-in I got after I had my little one. If you
But that
guys don't know sew-in,
was
sew-ins are like extensions that you braid into your hair for people that don't know.
that was really early on when I thought you were going to leave me too. Like if
No,
I
no, no. This is after the baby. I'm
oh,
talking
you're
about.
talking about after the baby.
Yes.
Okay.
And my head, I look like a bobblehead. I mean, the hairdresser tried her best. And I was like, "Tell me, I know I just paid for this, but I will take it out." And my mom was like, "Take it out now." A little harsh, but I want that honesty. And sometimes I wish that he would do that more, right? So maybe it's just
But
different
but now but now
maybe it's just different communication styles. But go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I mean, but now sometimes but now I give you feedback when you ask me for feedback. And sometimes I don't give you as much feedback as you would want. But the key there is that I don't turn things into criticism towards you. unless you say, hey, tell me what you think of this. Whereas if you're just telling me a story about like, oh, this happened with my mom, it made, or with whoever, this happened with somebody, it made me mad. Then I don't turn it around to like, well, what? Let me tell you what you could have done better to not get yourself in that situation.
But then my question to you, why is it that when I tell you what you could have done better, that's received negatively when you know that
Because I'm not asking for it.
So you're saying to me you never want me to give you back.
No, when I ask for it.
So hold on, let me finish. So you're saying that you never want me to give you back constructive feedback when you tell me something. Just listen, but never tell you how you can do better.
Well, I think you can feel it out in situation. You can feel it out in the situation. Like, am I looking for feedback, or am I looking to emote?
Okay, understood. But why can't sometimes? What if you know that my intent is not negative? Why is it that you don't think that you have to work on how you receive it sometimes, right?
Well, but that's a good qualification, because sometimes I feel like this happens like when you're annoyed with me about something else at the time, and so I feel like sometimes the criticism is based on your mood at the time.
And see, that's what I'm going back to. It's not always based on my
Not
mood.
always,
Correct.
but sometimes.
Sometimes, but I'm saying even the example that we just gave, it wasn't based on my mood. I feel like that is a true thing. And if you look at yourself internally, do you think my feedback was accurate?
Well, now fast forward. The person in question, I never said anything to the person in question. Have you heard the person in question say the nickname at all recently?
No, but what does that have to do with?
Well, sometimes things don't need to be addressed directly. Sometimes if you just let them go, they resolve themselves.
And sometimes they don't. Now, if this person kept on calling our child the nickname, which it wasn't like a horrible nickname, would you have said something?
Eventually, if I was hungry enough and it caught me in a bad mood and my hormones were bad, then yes.
You saw that little jab. Let me ask you something, but you didn't answer my, I think, original question. Do you think that is an aspect of your personality where you're one who tends to avoid conflict? So you,
Absolutely.
okay. So that's
Yeah.
all that I was saying. I was just pointing out something that I noticed was a trend. And I just think maybe it's different communication styles, which is what triggers our argument, right? When I give what I think is constructive feedback, he takes it as an attack, maybe, to his character. Yes, baby cakes, our little one is in the back, very vocal. He takes it as an attack to his character, but that's not my intent. So maybe I think we're still working on how we go about effectively communicating with each other.
Please leave comments and talk
Yeah.
about how you guys communicate,
We
how,
are
how you have
open.
arguments.
Yes.
And feel free to comment and tell me that Charles is always right.
Yes. And like and subscribe below. Talk to you guys later.